welcome back to another Mother Fiction podcast, Writers Podcast. I knew I'd screw it up sometime. I'm Stevie, and then we have my co-host,
Stacy.
And then we are welcoming Anastasia today. She's a fellow bookstagrammer and book lover, and she also is a writer. So I'm going to jump over to her and let her kind of talk about herself and some of your works.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Wow. Suddenly I feel like all the
pressure. You're on the hot spot now.
So basically, I'm originally from California, but I'm currently living in Ireland right now.
That is
I'm
awesome.
Over for my master's degree, and then just kind of ended up staying. I never went home. It was supposed to be 1 year, but
such a beautiful place, right? I've never been, but I've seen pictures.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and especially like in summertime when the weather is actually decent.
Yeah,
it's stunning. So yeah, I did my master's in creative writing at Trinity College, and I've had a couple like short stories published in different like
awesome
online journals. I have 3 that have been published in anthologies that people can like download and read, and
yeah, and we'll try and link those stories here, so then everyone can check those out too. So
that's good. And yeah, right now I'm currently querying my first YA novel that I wrote like a couple years ago. I finally had it edited, and it's good to go out into the world now.
Yeah,
Buddy's Girl.
So exciting.
It's kind of like YA sci-fi. It's set in the future, kind of like after humans have colonized Mars.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it's kind of like
a
queer Count of Monte Cristo retelling, sort of.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
How's the querying going then? How has that been?
Soul crushing.
Oh gosh, I've heard it is.
Yeah, like I had one publisher that seemed really interested in it last year that I thought was gonna, be a yes, but they ultimately ended up passing on it.
Oh,
I've had a couple successes from like the different like challenges on Twitter, like diversity pitch and those kinds of things.
Yeah, right.
So I had a couple agent likes for that, and then ultimately, they've been no's. So I'm still
that's okay. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Should have went with her. Yeah, their loss. That's
right. Well, and that's what every author is always talking about. They went through hundreds or 50 or whatever. How many no's did they get? And then finally somebody believed in them. So it'll happen.
Yeah, it's statistically it's supposed to happen if you just go on like something.
But it just doesn't. It's not comforting when it does happen.
I know.
Right? Like,
yeah,
it helps, but at the same time, it's like hearing that every time you try to brace yourself, and it's like,
like ouch.
Difficult.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm still writing other stuff in the meantime while I'm querying that. My latest project that's probably going to be like my NaNoWriMo project this year.
Yeah.
I've kind of been plotting it out is it's kind of like a Great Gatsby meets The Stolen Heir, kind of like.
Perfect.
Nice.
I love The Great Gatsby.
Your story concepts are so interesting. Like, you had me at the first one. I already want to read that one, and that one sounds just as thanks.
Well,
and
that's
like, as an author, that's part of it, is like being able to come up with like interesting stories, interesting concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
right.
I mean, both of those were unique. So sounds awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I've really been getting into sci-fi. I feel like sci-fi has been picking up just in general. Maybe because of the Bookstagram community, Book Talk or whatever and stuff, So I love that. I love that you're writing. Is that like your main forte is like sci-fi, or is it just all?
I bet
it kind of flip-flops between sci-fi and fantasy, like just basically anything that is not on planet Earth.
Right. Yeah. I'm here for that.
Or if it's on planet Earth, if it has like, mermaids or something like
mythical. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Same. That's the same here. It's just so, I think as fictional writers, or like especially fantasy sci-fi writers, we have such deep imaginations that is so fun to kind of create your own world, your own thing, not just your own characters, but your own place, and throwing them in there. I find something so exciting about that.
A big part of it is of being a writer is like just submerging yourself into a different world. It makes it so exciting every time you sit down to write. And I don't know everybody's writing process, but for me, it's almost like I exist in their world for a couple months before I actually start writing. So like by the time I get to this is probably going to make me sound so crazy, but I'm just going to go with it. I don't care. I feel like by the time I sit down to write, they're my friends. Like I feel like I know
them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is your writing process like then?
And it usually starts with a story title. Like weirdly enough,
That's cool.
Kind of think of like a story title where I'm like, oh, that would make a really
That's good because that's hard sometimes. Yeah. The title.
And then
it's awesome hearing everybody's process. Like everybody is so different when it comes to writing. Like everyone thinks like, oh, it's like all the same. But like just being able to interview CH before you, she liked to like have hers all planned out and just like kind of knew how she wanted everything. And I'm more of like a filler. Like I just, when it comes to me, I just write it as I feel it. Like that probably sounds like, like I'm trying to be like hippie or whatever, but it's just true. And then like to hear that, like you think of a title, that is just, it's awesome. Cool. Like I just hear, everybody else's process.
That's usually like the first thing, and then there's a lot of like internal screaming because I'm trying to figure out like the logistics of everything.
Yeah.
Bring it together.
Kind of like you, Stacy. I kind of have to like sit in the world and kind of like think about it before I start like properly writing it down. And like I've been trying to be more of like a plotter. Like I definitely admire those writers that can like bust out the note cards and like,
I don't know how they do that.
So perfect. I know. I'm like, I can write a couple scenes, maybe like the important things. Be like, okay, there's gonna be, a big reveal at the ball. There's gonna be like something happen.
Very like little minimal, like almost like leave yourself like little notes to be like, now after this part, this is gonna happen. Like little things like that. I get that. I can.
This.
Yeah.
As somebody that doesn't plan, I'm asking you because I'm wondering how you feel about it. It's hard for me to plan a plot because my characters don't always stick with it.
Right.
I plan a plot 1,000 times and my characters
go off
do what they want.
Yeah.
Not like off base, but just like, I mean, it fits the story. And then when I look at it, I'm like, okay, that was kind of better than what I was thinking it was going to be, or like how it was going to turn out. Not all the time. Sometimes I'm like, okay,
we made a mess of
a little crazy. But like I just couldn't imagine like planning. I mean, I know people do it and they're fantastic at it and they're like beautiful writers, but like for me, I just can't plan.
Right.
Because my character
Yeah. It takes for me, it takes the fun out of it a little bit. Like, when I've tried to really plot things out and be like chapter by chapter, here's what's going to happen. And I end up being like, I don't want to write this story anymore. It takes kind of the fun out of it. Like, because for me, it's a little bit of the creativity of where are we going from here, and stuff. Is that how you feel about it too? Is that how you take it?
Yeah, like I like to, I want to be more plotty just for like, the middle part where it kind of, it's easy to start at the beginning. It's easy to come up with the end. But then like that brick lane in the middle, I want to kind of like have more ideas of how we get from here.
I do want to be able to do that too. Sometimes sometimes I'll write and I'll feel like, did I go through that middle
Too quickly.
Like, did enough things happen? Like, I'll sit there and think, did they visit enough places? Is it weird that they spend a lot of time in their room, or is it weird that they're in the high school a lot, or is it weird that they're outside? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I could see
I
how
get
you
worried that like the middle part gets boring if I don't
Yeah.
like, have an idea of what might happen. So that's why I'm like trying to kind of
Right.
Yeah.
I feel the same. I feel like that's a struggle for a lot of writers, whether you're a pantser or plotter. Obviously, I don't want to talk for everybody, but I just have, like, being a part of the writing community, I feel like I've noticed that everyone struggles in that middle zone. And even when you're reading a book, sometimes it feels like, okay, nothing's happening. Keep flip. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes that's how it is. So writing it and trying to be like, no one's going to want to flip through this. We're going to make it good. It's going to be a good middle. It's just so hard because I also feel like the middle sometimes can be all of a sudden there's so much happening and you're trying to fit all these pieces together that it becomes confusing, or very, like, when it comes to fantasy writing, you're just throwing a bunch of stuff at people and you're like, I hope this makes sense.
Yeah. Here, have a dragon. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. They magically found this chest that has all the weapons they've ever needed.
Right. It appeared right when they needed it.
Yeah. Out of nowhere. Yeah.
Right.
But
I feel like after writing a novella, which I'm not trying to drop my books, I won't even say the name of it, but I kind of felt like the opposite of that. Like, I felt like I tried to fit too much in such a small time frame. Like, once it was finished, I'm like, I'm happy with it, but at the same time I was like, I don't think I could write like this all the time, because it just felt like too much with such a short, like,
right,
have you guys about the Twilight timeline? Like, how the Twilight books timeline literally takes like a place within a year and a half.
Oh,
so they fall in love, get married, and have a child like in a year and a half.
Right.
And like, I like that with this novella that I have coming out, because it's like such a short, like, snippet of their life that's just like crammed in between a series, and I just did it for fun. I don't regret it, but I'm like, they said I love you really, that happened really fast, but like the timeline it kind of had to, so it's like, I don't know, like, so sometimes like you fit too much and too little, and then sometimes you feel like you fit too little in like such a long time frame. So.
Right. That's what like, that's why usually a lot of things start out as short stories, but then they turn into novels, is because that whole thing of like, so many like storylines that could happen. I kind of need more than just 10,000 words max.
Right. Well, it's like a good starting base, because for me, that's like how I always was. Like growing up, I've always loved to write, but it was more of a short story kind of thing. It was like an idea that I just rolled with, and then I was done with it, But now, as I've gotten older, everything does start off kind of that way, where it's like a short story or a little snippet, and then it grows from there, It kind of takes off and stuff. So I don't know if that's the maturity of my mind now, like that kind of a thing, where I maybe can handle a little bit more. I'm not sure why that is all of a sudden, but. So are you a short story writer too?
Yeah, I do. I do like short stories, just because like I like kind of like how you were saying, like the whole it's just like a little snippet of something that could be bigger. I kind of like playing around with that and just making it like a little glimpse into like characters' lives, where it's like, well, this is a moment in their timeline, and here's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And because that's what, when it comes to like reading fantasy too, I love chunky books, big books that go on forever. But there's nothing more exciting than an author being like, oh, and here's like a little novella that's only 100 pages or whatever. to get this little piece that you wanted maybe more information on, or get this person's backstory a little bit more. I love those. I think they're so powerful, you know, and fun.
Same.
Like I definitely have like, you know, my big projects that are like, you know, duologies or trilogies, and then the little accompanying short stories.
Yeah.
Or novellas that would like, you know, kind of round out bits and pieces of that world.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many...
And then all of a sudden another world and another story comes to you. And you're like, okay, I got to write that down. And then all of a sudden at the end of the day, you're like, how do I have this many working projects going?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I always feel so bad because sometimes I'm in the middle of writing a story and trying to get it completed because I have like a deadline coming up or whatever. And then another story will come to me and I will submerge myself in that world. And I'm like,
you can't get out of your head. Yeah.
That would have been donated to the actual story that has a deadline.
Right.
But that's how Nobody's Girl happened. Like I started it when I was supposed to be doing my thesis for my master's. So I'm supposed to be writing like 25,000 words for this one like mermaid story that I had. And then suddenly I have like this idea of like, you know, this girl living on Mars, and I started writing it. And yeah, like I was kind of like, do I turn this in for my dissertation?
Yeah. Do it, change it. That's awesome. I love that though, because that's part of being a writer. I feel like our minds are always going. They're always coming up with new things. And like for me right now, I have that. What?
That guy that says for me.
Yeah. I just feel like when you throw deadlines on things, sometimes that can bring on writer's block. Do you guys agree? Sometimes it can.
Yeah.
So then your mind's like, I just want to work on this new idea. That's fun again.
Oh yeah.
The pressure of a second story, so I'm just gonna come out and say it. Demons. I'm halfway through it, so it's not like I'm not working on it at all. But I feel like pressured because I feel like I really want people to like this because it's the second book. And I really it's perfect. And now that the deadline's approaching, I'm like, do I have enough time to make it the way I want it? And it's like my brain is just shutting down because I feel like nothing I think about or think of or can come up with is good enough.
Yeah, like the pressure. Yeah, the pressure kind of gets in your head. Yeah. It's understandable. So, I feel like that happens to so many people, especially with a second book. In your case, that first one really did take off. And so then trying to meet that expectation, it would be so daunting.
Yeah, it's more than I expected. And I think Disappeared didn't do as well, my other book. And I think it's because a lot of people went into that Why Choose expecting Darkside's sex spicy level.
Oh, right.
It wasn't the same. And I didn't really warn people that it wasn't the same, but I felt like I really didn't have to, because it's like normally I set an age limit and I put like at the beginning, this is 18 plus, spicy scenes, be careful, be careful what you read and all this stuff. And I didn't add that, so I felt like it was enough. So like after that happening with Disappeared, I'm like, I really don't want this. I don't want the second book to Darkside flop because like how much sex should I put in it? How much sex is too much sex? And like I feel almost, and I'm not saying this against my readers, I am so thankful that they enjoy it, and I don't mind writing spicy scenes. And like when I'm filling them, sometimes it can be really fun. But like sometimes I feel like to myself like, but I want to write more than just spicy books. You know what I mean? Like
I get that.
Like, and it's finding that those people, and it's nothing against them, they just like spicy books. That's just what they're into, But like, I want to find my people that are like, okay, well, she writes spicy books sometimes she writes fantasy, sometimes she mixes it in, sometimes it's
more like about your writing style. Yeah.
But it's just finding that like middle, like having everyone think that every book I'm going to release is going to be like Darkside, which I mean some of them are, like Axel is going to be pretty crazy, and so is another book have coming out. It's actually on Vela, which I won't mention the name of that either because this is not about me. I don't know why I always end up talking about me. I'm sorry. But it's just something I was thinking of. Like, you feel cornered as a writer when you find a genre that everyone likes. You feel like, should I keep writing like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is it?
You're like me, I need all of the ratings. Just love me. I'll do it.
We all just want to be loved, just like our stories.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess right stories like Dark Side all the time. I'll do it. Okay. I just have my little scene and just know that. I
definitely find spice fun. I think that's one of besides like an action scene. I really enjoy that, but I also world building will always be like my top favorite. So I always have that.
Spice is I have to be in the mood for it. Like, that sounds so sexual, but it's just true. Like, my mind has to mentally be there because you don't want to just say the same thing. Oh, you know, like she moans, he grunts, he growls.
Right, I know. There's only so many words. Yeah. And do you write spice in Anastasia?
I've kind of been inspired actually by you. And
baby.
Yeah, those Wednesday shares that you.
Oh gosh, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
God. But yeah, like I've also played around with like the idea for a couple like new adult books instead of YA, because you can't put spice into YA.
Right.
So there's some stuff that, you know, at some point I might be like, oh, here's a new adult thing that I've written.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's part of it.
Oh, sorry.
It's
Go ahead.
No. Well, and I feel like writing spice too. Sometimes it just takes, like Stacey was saying, you have to be in the mind zone for it, and you also have to kind of like, I feel like I share a lot of the spice, but like my one book, the romantasy one, it's really not even like, it is a why choose, but it's really not that spicy. Now the steampunk one that I'm working on it goes up a notch. It's a totally different level.
That first chapter is spicy.
But
I was not expecting that. I was reading and I was like, wait, hold on, what now?
Well, and I just feel
like a good,
Well, and I feel like too, I feel like when it comes to like social media, it's a sexual driven thing a lot of times, you know? So when I share my snippets, they're the ones that get more attention, is the naughty ones, the risque ones, you know? So I definitely feel like it's fun to write. I really get in the zone when I'm writing that. But there is something to like say about world building in general. Like, it is so much fun.
Yeah.
But are you working on then like new adult books now? Is that something you're like toying with?
Yeah, that's kind of what the one that I mentioned that's going to be my NaNoWriMo project. It's going to be probably more new adult. Like, well, the characters are going to be like, you know, in their early 20s.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, I might sneak a little spice in there.
I mean, once you start though, it is kind of hard to stop because you realize there's like a freedom, and maybe as being like a woman too, there is like a freedom about writing it, you know? There's something fun and thrilling and stuff, and being like kind of like taking your own, being like, I can do this. I am just as good as anything else. Yeah.
Of writing advice, just because I was afraid that friends and family were going to read it. But something I've learned, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but mostly friends and family don't want to read, especially your stuff.
In general.
Like not in a bad way, but like I really thought I had this stigma of like all my friends and my family reading these books. So I was like really careful about what I put in it because I was afraid I would be embarrassed. But then when the time came, that's not really what happened. You know what I mean? Like, I was like really thinking that I was going to have like this big group of friends that are going to be like, what were you writing? But the reality is I have to beg friends.
Well, I knew.
Now I
I
don't have to, but in the beginning I did. And like in their defense, like going back reading my old stuff, I wouldn't want to read it myself. So it's a no harm done. But it's just funny because I really thought like I had this like big thing that, you know, oh my God, everyone's gonna read my stuff and then they're gonna know that like I think like this or whatever, you know, like putting your journal
They're
up there
gonna
for
know how twisted I am.
yeah, like
Yeah.
they're real.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
like,
then
and
feels so good. Like when you finally put it out there for everyone to read, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm a freak. All right,
oh, right. No.
just take it off. So just
Well,
you
like I
know,
said,
just
I think there's some I really do. I think there's some freedom about it. There's freedom in writing in general. There's freedom, and we always talk about how it's also like therapeutic. Like if you're having a bad day, there's nothing better than sitting down and just hashing it out on a good writing session, you know?
right.
So I do feel that way. And I also knew going in, like I have great support. There's nothing, that's a totally different level, you know, like there's support and then there's actually reading the books. And the people who are going to read the books for me, I know are not going to be family members and friends, only because
Right.
they don't, I've always been the only one who reads vampires, fantasy, sci-fi.
I don't mean it like my
Yeah.
family's not supportive. It's just that they're not readers, like in the slightest. My
Yeah,
sister
in a
is.
different way.
She loves it. But her genre is so different from mine that she wouldn't like to read about sex and stuff. Like, I mean, she's in her 30s, but
Yeah.
she's like fantasy, like, you know, always fight. Not that I don't enjoy fantasy, but she's like, you know, swords and dragons and battles kind of girl.
I mean, I love that too.
Like the classic kind of fantasy.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
same. But so
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite books too?
Oh gosh. There's so many.
I know it is
I know.
hard.
And it's
Well,
funny because you can think of it when you're alone, but when somebody asks you on the spot, it's
They're
like you
like right
forget
there.
every
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
that's ever.
Well, what kind of things are you like? Because sometimes, are you a mood reader? Or are you?
I'm kind of, I suppose I kind of am a bit of a mood reader. But like, I also have a very like literary side that
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
I majored in English for my undergrad.
Right.
So
Yeah.
some of those like modernist literature and stuff like has like a special place in my heart. So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah. So
Right.
like it kind of depends. Like there's sorry. Sorry.
No, you're
No, you're
fine.
fine.
Yeah, so like I'd say that my favorite book would probably be The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway, just because like I read it when I was going through like a really bad breakup.
Yeah.
The kind
Right.
of like sad
It has a special place.
relationship kind of resonated with me,
Right.
so it has a special
Right.
place in my heart for that. But I also grew up like, you know, reading Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Like also
Yeah.
has special places in my
Right.
heart. And,
All those
Yeah.
kind of like game changers and stuff. Like someone who
Yeah.
took like Lord of the Rings will always be kind of that like father of that kind of fantasy writing, you know? So
Oh, yeah.
it's just a classic. I think that was well, and like then you could also say like Sarah J. Maas was the new one for like a romantasy kind of throwing that in, having romance as kind of the base, but there's still major world building. There's still, which is great because I think that got a lot more people into the fantasy world, which I'm all about. Bring more people in. Because I love nothing more than like talking about books and stuff, you know? I feel like that's why, I don't know if you guys are like this, but you know, in everyday situations, people want to talk about jobs and money and whatever that is. And I'm always like, can we just talk about this book that I just read?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I do that with my husband all the time. I mean, the good thing is he's a reader too. So he doesn't, and he likes to hear about like, well, at least I think he does like to hear about my stories. And like, one time, I won't ruin anything, but I read The Best Part of You, I think is the name, by Nicholas Sparks.
Okay.
And it did so tragically that it just ruined my life for a while.
Oh,
And it's
no.
literally all I could talk about, like with everyone. Like we would be quiet and I'd be like, so Mom, I read this book. And she
Yeah.
would just look at me and I was
There's
like,
a little gap in this conversation. Let me throw this in here.
my mom is a safe place because she won't read. So I could tell her how it ended and she was okay with it. And I was like, isn't that awful? And she was like, that would feel like such a waste of time. She's like, I see why. But like most of the time, I'm just like telling people about my book characters. My husband will be like, I had a really hard day at work. And I'll be like, I know. Listen, I got to tell you,
happened in my book
was so dramatic.
Right.
Like, Harry doesn't even want to be with Carl anymore. And I can't forgive him. And then the next chapter, I'm like defending Carl. And my husband's like, okay.
I love it. Yeah.
Yes, I find myself doing that.
Well, I do like books. So does your wife read too? So is that something you guys have in common?
She likes to read like nonfiction.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
if you give
Yeah.
her something on like I don't know, like what even is a nonfiction topic.
I know. I don't know.
The only thing that ever comes to mind for me is self-help. I know a lot of people read that stuff, or like memoirs, biographies, stuff like that.
Yeah. So like if you were to give her something, I guess like nonfiction, she would definitely be like, "Oh, this is interesting."
Yeah.
Fiction,
Right.
she's kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of why like she doesn't understand when I walk into a bookstore, I need to pick up a book because
Right.
Yes. Does your wife read your work? Do you have her like?
I sometimes let her read stuff, or I'll let her read it after it's been published.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because she's very like technical minded and
Okay.
fantasy, sci-fi. She doesn't suspend her belief for things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's hard to immerse into like a new world.
Yeah, she'll be unnecessarily critical about stuff. She'll be like, well,
okay, this may sound strange.
People like that, so they balance out people like us. Sometimes we need those critical thinkers because I mean,
right.
I just do. I need it. So
okay, I am such a weird like astrology type of person, and like so my husband is a Virgo, and he is very much that way, where it's hard for him to like he needs it to be not really reality, but it's hard for him to be like, how does this make sense? He wants to figure it out. He's trying to be like, how I'm like, don't think too much in. I'm like, it's magic. Like, that kind of stuff. There's shadow. It just comes out of them, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like he can watch a show, but then sometimes I've got to like explain, like we'll have to pause and be like, did you get that? But he likes them. He gets into them, but it makes me hard to like share my stories with him, or it makes it hard because
I have to explain it.
Like I love it. I love when like I'll show him like snippets, and he even said the other day, he goes, how come you always show me the really spicy scenes? And I go, because you understand that. I'm like, we can talk about that. But no, he's great though.
Sometimes he's hard because like he'll help me edit, and this is like in the nicest way possible. But because we understand each other so well, we've been together for 14 years, married for 13 in August, and we're like on the same wavelength. So sometimes I will ask him 1,000 times, are you sure this makes sense?
Yeah.
And he'll be like, I understood when I read it. That's exactly how I saw it. And I always think to myself, does it make sense because you think like me? Or does it make sense because it makes sense?
Yeah. Right.
So like I see both, like having somebody that you would have to explain that to all the time, but then sometimes with my husband I'm like, but wait, like I need to know how you got to this conclusion, because is it making sense just because we think alike,
Yeah.
Or did it
Yeah.
genuinely make sense to you? Like,
Right.
and he gets so frustrated. He's like, how many more ways can I say it makes sense? Like, I don't know how else to convey that
Right.
it makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes if
that's
I write something contemporary based, I'll share that with her because that's something
Yeah.
it's
right.
reality and
Yeah.
she'll read it. But yeah, the more like fantasy sci-fi stuff, I'm like, wait till it gets published.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I feel like that was a game. So do you have an editor then that you kind of bounce things off of, or are you your editor? How do you do that?
I am my editor at the beginning, and then I have an editor that for my 30th birthday, like some friends organized a professional editor
That's
to
awesome.
take a look at my book.
That is cool.
If I have something completed and I want to like say if I have some short stories or something that I'm like, okay, I need like a second opinion on
Right.
this, because I also have like a writing critique group that I'm a part of, and that's helpful. But like if I
Right.
want to like
Yeah.
polish something for like publication or something, like I have a professional editor that I can.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Have
'Cause I
someone
think-
look at my, because sometimes I will say something like, know what I'm saying, but like they'll read it and they'll be like, I don't think that's the word you're looking for. Like, that's not right. Because I get in a flow and I do go back and read something, but if I wrote it down that way because that's how I read it in my mind, likely my brain will just scan over that the exact same way I wrote it down and the exact same way I read it. So it's always nice because, or sometimes, and this is probably embarrassing to admit, but it's okay. I don't mind throwing myself under the bus. Sometimes I will put fill and fill. I don't know what happens with my brain, but sometimes
I spell things
something
horribly
SE,
wrong all the time.
and my husband will be like, you with these fills, because like he'll be going through them, like, fixing them. And I'm like, I'm so thankful because like in my mind, it just like I don't do it like all the time, but like sometimes when I go back through something like a chapter, like say a chapter or something, I'll be like, what was I thinking with these fills? Like, why are
Well,
they
and I
this
think
way?
you and I talked about this last time, or maybe it was, or with CH, the was and the has. Like I don't know how,
Oh, yeah.
like when you're talking, it makes, you're like, oh yeah, all these words make sense. But then when you're writing and you get in that flow, all of a sudden you're like just throwing random things and you'll read back and be like, that makes no sense.
Or like,
that was the wrong use of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to. And like I'll read something, I'm like, okay, no, that's the singular. So that's what you're referring to. So that is. Like I'll actually I have this talk process.
Right. Well, and that's why things like Grammarly help so much.
My husband's like, are you okay over there? Or like I'll be sitting there, I'll go, were, was.
Yeah,
and then I'll read this 1,000 times and I'll say it were, and they'll be like, and then what? And then I'm like, okay, no. It's definitely were. It's were is right. I just know it's right. Or sometimes I'll repeat it so much that it no longer makes sense at all. Like I just have to put it down and come back to it because I'm like, okay, you have completely lost your mind and you've made it not make sense at all anymore. So just go take a break.
You just need someone else's eyes on it and stuff. And that's where the Writergram, Bookstagram, this community has been such a lifesaver, game changer, because I met, like you said, you were part of a group. I don't know if that's on the something else or if that's on the writing community and stuff.
Yeah, I've actually found them through the writing community because Uncharted magazine, who I've been like trying to get stuff published by them for like one day. They were putting out this like call for people looking for writing buddies and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Like, I need a writing buddy.
Right? I'm all in. Yeah, I'm all in on that. That's why it really is a game changer. Even if it's someone just to read someone else, because obviously we love our spouses and they, their opinion really means the world to us, but it's something different for somebody else Like even not a friend, like a friend, but just somebody else to take it in who won't be afraid to be like, this sentence really is off and could be cut or whatever.
Yeah.
You
I like to
need
use, I don't know if you guys use it, but I like to use the voice. Like the one on my phone that reads to you, she sounds more like somebody that you would get off of Audible. She's not like real robotic and weird. Hard with a robot. But when you hear it back to yourself too, sometimes you're like, oh wait, no, that's not right. That's not how I meant it.
Yeah.
Or like sometimes sometimes she'll say something and I'm like, okay, does that really need a comma, or is she just being weird when she pauses like that? Or like the way she says grimace sometimes will bug me because she'll be like, she grimaced. Like she doesn't real. And I'm like, did I spell that right? I'll go back and it's like, yeah, that's just how she always says it. But yeah, sometimes like hearing your writing back to you too will help, because you're like, wait, I didn't really mean to convey
sometimes I noticed this last night when I was rereading some of my stuff that I wrote last night. And I do this is like probably my number one thing. And Stacey, sometimes Stacey reads my stuff and I sound like Yoda. I'll like do things backwards. I'll be like, they walked in the room. He did. Like, what am I talking about? Like, why? Why did I just say that?
No,
but
I
feel like your work, when it gets to me, it's got like a good flow to it. Like I don't ever feel like when I'm reading it, like, oh wow, that was weird.
That was Yoda. Yoda was just talking to you.
Yeah. I feel like you catch the Yoda before I get to it. So
I do. I try to. I mean, that's why I go through my own stuff twice before I send it to anybody.
What's your downfall? Because sometimes I'll write you and I'll be like, where's this chapter? And you'll be like, I'm on my 5th time through it. And I'm like,
right.
Stevie, just put it for a minute. Just send it to me and let me read it.
Yeah. Well, do you do that too, Anastasia, where you just can't, there's like a chapter you just can't get over and you keep rewriting it?
Yeah. It's happened more times than I'd like to admit.
Right?
It's one of those that sometimes you just kind of have to like
cut it off.
Darlings, where you're just kind of like, okay, this is the last time I rewrite it. It's
right.
Going to the critique group or the editor or whoever, and
right,
and fix it afterwards.
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't know if this is like an OCD thing, because sometimes living inside my brain can be torturous when it comes to writing. This is kind of like a more vulnerable thing. I don't really think I've talked about this, but sometimes my brain will get stuck on a sentence because I don't the way the sentence sounds, and I will repeat it and rewrite it 1,000 different ways. And then by the time it's over, I'm like, I don't even know if this is saying what I wanted it to say in the first place. Or like, I'll just keep repeating the sentence over and over, and my husband will come in and like grip my shoulder and he's like,
time to step away.
Oh, let it go. Fine. But my brain will tell me it sounds weird.
There's almost like it's like a tick and you can't shut it off because there's something in here that you want to change, but you can't figure it out.
But I will rephrase it 1,000 different ways. And sometimes I'll rephrase it 1,000 different ways and I'm like, I liked it better before.
Yeah.
So, but for the part, like my brain will just get stuck on something and I have to fight myself to let it go, because if I don't, I'll get no peace.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think I've quite been there yet, but
right.
I've definitely.
I honestly think it's probably part of just having OCD, where my brain just won't let certain things go.
Stop.
Like,
yeah,
it's of, and I probably shouldn't joke about this because I don't mean this for people that have OCD, but sometimes I will have to tell myself, it's your mental illness, just let it go. Because if I don't tell myself that, I stay in this like negative space, and I don't mean that for anyone else. They have been. I'm saying for me personally, because I will.
Times you've got to away.
Yeah, I will torture myself. It's almost like, and I don't mean this for a visual, but it's almost like somebody picking at a scab over and over and over and over and over again. Like know that they shouldn't do, know that it's bloody and they should let it go, but they don't. And like that, my brain will do that. It just gets stuck on these certain sentences.
Well, it's
and
good to have your husband though, like see that when that is happening and stuff, and be like, okay,
computer away from me, and he'll close it, and he's like, "You're just gonna take a deep breath. You're gonna chill out for a minute."
right?
And I have learned somewhat too, with as much as I've been writing, to just let it go and then come back to it, because usually it'll sound different when I do let it go.
Yeah.
But sometimes my brain will not, like, it'll just be torturous, because especially with Bella, like releasing small episodes on there, sometimes I'll go back and just reread them and think to myself, did that say what I wanted it to say in that short amount of time? Like, did that page make sense? And like, there's like one part, and not to get boring, but there's like one part where she talks about, at the beginning, where she talks about the blood dripping from her finger.
Yeah.
And I'm like, technically it's dripping down her finger. Like, it's dripping down because she's holding it down. And my husband was like, yeah, but she really releases the rose and the blood falls from her hand. So everyone knows it's dripping down. I'm like, I feel like I should specify that it's dripping down. Like, that's the stuff I'm talking about. That's
right, that you get stuff on. Yeah. Well, for me, sometimes, like, I definitely get stuck, but what I do when I feel that coming on, I delete the whole sentence, because I'll remember the bits of it that I want, that I liked, but then when I rewrite it, there's something about it will flow better. The words either go into place or something, because I feel like I think we all do this, but I'm constantly like, okay, I can't repeat these words. I like to use like really directional words and descriptive words and stuff. And so I'm always like, okay, but is that the perfect word for this? Like, I like the flow of it, but does that make sense? Am I just putting a big word in here to put a big word in here? So sometimes I just have to delete it and come back.
Yeah. Speaking of this weird phrase sentences, how do you guys feel about descriptions? What are your thoughts on when you have to give descriptions about a person? Not necessarily a world, because a world can kind of be fun to build into, but I almost feel like sometimes with a person, especially like when I have more than one male involved, like my Y choose sometimes, I'm like, how many more times can I say he's got a chiseled jaw,
right,
dark eyes, and swoopy hair? Like, not really swoopy hair, that's not how I say it, but like sometimes I'll look at that and I'll have to reword it, because I'm like, I don't know, like I feel like they're described.
Not everyone can sound the same. Yeah.
You want description the same, but like, how many more ways are there to describe a face?
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with character description, like the physical description and everything, just because it seems like there's only so many words to describe what you're trying to describe.
Yeah, it's so daunting. Yeah. Some people are really good at like just working it in there, right?
Yeah.
I like Jennifer Armentrout is very cool when it comes to description, like at least in her older stuff. She just lists it. She's like, he's 6'4", he's got blonde hair.
Some people are really good at that. I am not, so I feel like it comes in their personality for me.
Yes, I feel like when you get that description, it's just kind of more straightforward. And I don't mind even some authors that are like, I stare into his dark eyes, and like the pieces come together as the story goes along. Although I will say it's distracting when you read a book and you have a character looking a certain way, and then all of a sudden, like 16 chapters in, they're like, oh,
then they describe him. Yeah.
And like, oh,
yeah,
he has hair. I've been picturing him this way because it's been too long since, with no description. But
yeah. I'm definitely I'm not a descriptor. I don't like throw in, like, I might say, I definitely mention their eyes, because I think that's a me thing. I think for me, like somebody, when I'm talking to somebody, I'm probably like a creep. I'm an eye looker and stuff. So like,
eyebrows out.
So to me, I definitely describe, like, you've obviously read, like, someone has what color eyes they are, the shade, like I'll be like deep ocean blue or crimson red, like that kind of stuff. I really try
Yeah.
talk about that a lot. But otherwise, I don't. And sometimes I'll talk about stature, but I'll be like broad shoulders. I don't ever say like their actual height or anything.
Right.
I'm always, I don't know.
Yeah, I tend to also kind of like, I'm more likely to mention the color of the eyes, and
Right.
like kind of like the stature, like if they're tall
Yeah.
or if they kind of
Yeah.
like walk with like some sort of limp or however.
Right.
Like, the
Yeah.
actual
And
like
kind of
full body description.
right.
Yeah.
That but if I do
Yeah.
describe a person fully, it does kind of come in piecemeal where it's like you have to pick it out as you go along.
Yeah.
Like the straightforward.
Right.
Well, and even if someone does put like major descript, like dark
I
hair,
do that.
dark eyes, mole
Listed.
on
That's
their
the kind of
cheek.
person, like, I want to know from the beginning when you introduce this character what they look like. And every reader's different. Like I said, I don't
Yeah.
mind when they work it in there. It gives it kind of mystery and it's fun and makes it fun. But because I am that way, I list everything about my character from the
Well,
very
and it's
beginning.
also your way of writing too. It really works
Yeah.
in that way because a lot of your writing is not really straightforward, but it just, you open it up with being like, here's what world we're in, like, here we are. And this is who this character, here's these connections. You kind of build that right away. So you kind of
Right.
know the descriptions, you know what people look like, you know where they're, the setting immediately. And I like that. And it's, your books are quick. They're always really fast paced. So I think that's a good thing for your style.
Like how she said she works it in and like how you say you just talk about their eyes, that all that stuff works. I also think it's kind of cool when you watch like an author's reel before reading their book because you almost have an idea of what this person looks like because they keep using this particular person. Now that's not going to work for everyone because not everyone's going to see that reel or not everyone's going to know, you know, that it existed or whatever. But like sometimes I'll read something and I'm like, okay, like now I can't picture anybody else but this particular person.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, and that would be cool if you could get everyone like everyone before you read my book, watch this reel.
Yeah.
But he looks and then we can talk about his eyes the entire time and I can forget literally everything else. But I guess that would kind of be boring if he took his shirt off and you didn't talk about something, you know, or her. But I actually have in Secrets I do have one of my main characters with a girl who's Cricket. And well that's what they call her. And I don't know, like when you describe their body, it just kind of feels like more like, ooh, okay, we're getting into this.
Well, and I feel like body representation is a huge thing too. So I do describe, I guess, physical. Like I said, I just don't do the real like logistic stuff, like 6'4" and 8 size
That's
8
fine.
or whatever.
As
Like
long-
I don't do that, but I definitely will talk about if somebody has curves or is straight, or like my one girl, I feel like big boobs are everywhere, you know, and stuff, and that's great. But this person is very flat, like very flat chested and stuff, and that's part of her characteristics, and it's in on this book. But and so I put that in there as like a thing. So then people can still have that description and stuff like that, you know. And then, like I said, when it comes to like guys and stuff too, I'll talk more about like their width or like their wide shoulders, or I'll talk about like long arms or like, you know, that kind of stuff instead. What? Big what?
It's probably so gross, but veins are my thing. Okay.
Oh,
like,
you do throw that in a lot. You do. Yeah.
I like veins on the like that corded vein around their like arm. Like I don't know. It's just so.
That's okay. I'm a hands girl, so I probably throw that in a lot too.
Yeah,
I'm a boobs girl.
Well, and that'll probably, I don't know. I just love the different in all of our writing styles, and I feel like no matter what, it does come out, but in every way that you will write that, you know, even if like you have a particular characteristic that you like, it will probably without you even realizing it. It will probably come up in your books.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
Sometimes character problems
each
that I dealt
time
with.
it's different. Each time it's
Yeah.
different, you know, like unique and stuff. But I'm going to throw it back to Anastasia. And if you have anything else you want to plug or talk about quick before we've got 15 minutes. So
You've got,
not that I can
we'll give
think of at the moment. Like whatever you guys want to talk about. Like
I feel bad. Like I don't want to feel like I
Yeah.
overpowered your conversation or overpowered like what you were trying to say. I just like meeting new people and talking with new people, and I get excited. So excuse me, I was too much
No.
because
well, that's what
can't
I
be.
do. I do too. I have a horrible problem of butting in on conversations. I don't know if it's because I've always been a part of a loud, big family. So that's just like how we talk. We just kind of like jump into things.
In my family, because I'm not saying that word loud because we're Mexican, but at least for my family in particular, we are very loud and we will talk over each other.
We do
so
that
we
too.
will have multiple conversations going at once of our voices just loud. So sometimes I have
we do that just because we are loud people.
I come from loud people, but I'm very like quiet. Like I've always been kind of like the observer and everything.
Yeah.
But my family's half Mexican, half Puerto Rican, so it's always like I've always been the one just kind of like watching all like
watching. Yeah. You gotta have that too. Yeah. Well, I get very overwhelmed sometimes. Like I love my family, but they are a lot and they are talkers and they're the type that are like high-fiving people and like I'm just like, okay, we got to take it down a little bit because I'm very overwhelmed at the moment.
Before, because I'm excited about something, I've been told to be quiet. Like, shh, you're being too loud. And I'm like, never mind, I don't have anything to say.
Yeah. Oh.
Because my family has just always been loud, especially like me and my grandpa. And it wasn't just his hearing. Like that's just how we would talk.
Yeah.
Like grandma would come in the room and she'd be like, wow, you guys are really yelling in here. I thought you were arguing for a minute. Because my grandma, she's from the South. She was kind of more of a quiet kind of, you know, person.
Yeah.
But she would come like, are you guys okay in here? And we'd be laughing. I'd be like, oh yeah, grandma, we're good. We're just being loud.
Yeah, being ourselves. Yeah.
But yeah. You know what? I have a question.
Okay.
Fast.
Okay.
What is your process when you reach out to someone? Because as an indie author, I wouldn't even know where to start because I wouldn't even. Yeah. How does that work?
Oh,
to like the publishers and stuff.
Yeah. Like,
like for querying and stuff.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I was like,
I asked confusing.
But basically, like, so I signed up to Query Tracker, and that kind of like has where it's like a little hub of where all like the literary agents are that are open for submissions, kind of like what their wish list is and everything. Twitter's also another great.
Yeah, I hear about Twitter all the time. Yeah.
So and then I also follow this one website, Authors Publish. They send out like newsletters pretty much like every week, and there's always like updates on like independent publishing houses that are looking for submissions.
Okay.
That's kind of
that's cool.
How I find where I'm going to submit to, and then I have like a little Excel spreadsheet where I have like, you know, who's looking for what, when their submission window is from, when it opens up or closes, whatever. And then I'll just, you know, track it in like another sheet where I'm like, okay, I sent Nobody's Girl on this date to these people. Waiting for response. If
That's a good idea.
Like a request, what the outcome is. So yeah, I try to be as organized as possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's an organized.
Good. Yeah. And do you send not only for the querying stuff, but do you also like try for all kinds of like because Twitter has contests all the time and stuff. Are you always in on that stuff too?
Yeah, I do participate in like some of the contests that I see that would be, within my genre.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I'm always on the hunt for like places that are looking for like anthology submissions or short story submissions.
Yeah. See, that's
Good
really
idea.
cool. That is really cool
Yeah.
because I thought about that too, being into short stories and stuff like that. Because anthologies are so fun because sometimes your brain only has, a short amount of time to really get into a story. And
Right.
so I find anthologies very fun. I love them.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. That's awesome. It's cool to hear
Different side of things.
everyone's different story of how they're getting into writing and what's working
Right.
for them, and so yeah, that's really interesting. And it sounds very organized, like something
Right.
that
I
could probably reach out, but they would probably open my thing and be like, wow, this girl
Yeah.
is
Same.
a mess.
Who's this message person?
Introduce myself. I have my whole book. Oh, and by the way, my name's Stacy. Not really, but it's the kind of person I am, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Very cool.
I actually have my thing right here. So
yeah,
we have like, I don't know if I can. So we got like my little short story tracker where
cool.
That's awesome.
By like genre that it's written in, a quick little short synopsis, the status of if it's finished drafting, etc. And then
that is perfect. Like,
on another page, I have like my submissions one. So
that is such a good idea.
That is. That's right. That's a great way to keep on track.
And it's so beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
I go overboard with the colors because they make me happy.
Yeah, right. I understand that.
That's a whole motivation to keep writing, is like, oh, I get to update my tracker and make it look all pretty with the fun colors.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's what, so I like to bullet journal. I feel like that's like about as organized as I get, but that's more me organizing my chaotic thoughts, like that kind of thing. So even like a character and stuff, I'll like kind of bullet journal things that remind me of them, or like print off a picture and stuff. I'm even trying to get a little bit better about that. But so that's awesome. I applaud you.
In my phone. If I'm
your notes are
I don't have a cute journal or anything. It's just like random. He's got green eyes, like the character's name and their description and like what they do and like what their background is. So then I can go back to it and like have a something to refer to.
Well, my notes are a mess too. My notes on my phone, I'll like throw in, I'll be like, so there's a new character I'm introducing to the steampunk book, and her name is Tempest. And I just wrote like really quick paragraphs because she's going to be the love story in book 2. So there's that. And so, but she like kind of came to me out of nowhere and was like, this person needs a best friend. And obviously it's a romance series. So I'm like, I got to have someone else. Well, I'm having so much fun with her. And I've like, there's some random stuff that come into, because she's so not like me. She's a very just like she throws a beer bottle at somebody and stuff at one point. And like, I love her, but the way that I do my notes, it's in my phone. And I'll just be like, for book 2, remember, like she says it, because she's really mean to the guy that she falls in love with at first. There's a reason for it. But I'm like, you got to throw this stuff in. Like, that's how I do little notes too. That's on my phone though.
Right.
My notes on my phone are basically when I wake up in the middle of the night with like an idea or something. I'm just kind of like,
that
right. Yeah.
In the morning,
don't you hate that?
it
like
makes
absolutely. And then you gotta decipher it. Yeah. Right.
Like the other day, I woke up, wrote something in my notes, went back to sleep, and I woke up in the morning, and it just said, story idea, a couple. I'm like, a couple of what?
That's hilarious. I love that. Like, that's hilarious.
I lay down to like come up with these ideas, like while I'm awake, and like can write and have like a full story. Like sometimes, and I don't know if you guys do this, but sometimes my notes will turn into a chapter.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll think
You
like
just
I'm
keep
just going to
going.
start with this. And a conversation comes to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to write the conversation down real quick, and I'll look at it.
Right.
And be like, oh my god,
Into a scene.
like 2,000
Yeah.
words in this note saying
Yeah.
that I have to copy.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah.
I've done that too. And then my notes, like in my story, like as I'm rereading things, or even for the first draft, I don't know how many times I will put make this make sense. That is like my major note to myself. Just make it make sense.
Yeah, because I've done like brief descriptions before, and I'll go back to it and I'm like, I have no idea what I was saying. Like that story is just gone. Delete it because it's over. Whatever you were trying to convey didn't make sense. So yeah, I've tried to be a little bit more detailed with mine because I do that too.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's usually like either a battle scene, which I love, and I get so into them that I just roll with it. And then when I read it back, I'm like, or even before I read it back, I'm like, I know this is going to be a mess. So just make it make sense, you know? Otherwise,
Right.
it's usually otherwise it's the opposite, which I struggle with emotional scenes, probably because I'm not a
Right.
very emotional. I'm a joker instead of a let's get deep person, you know? And
Right.
so I struggle with emotional scenes, but I know they're super important. So that's another one where I'm like, go back and make it make sense. Make it sure the feels are there, you know?
Right.
And
So
so,
the emotional scenes are the ones that will usually turn into like, or I'll be like, oh, I just need to write down this quick little note, and then it turns into like, oh, we have written a whole scene.
super long.
Those are the emotional ones, because as a
Right.
Cancer, I have all the emotions.
I love that. I wish I could. See, Aries, we just are about the fire and there's high emotions, and we don't really have low you know. Well, we're either really high or really low, but not in between. And we don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. My birthday's next month, so I'll just say that.
Oh, so
You're
yeah.
probably a Taurus.
Yeah.
You're early May, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a bull.
Taurus. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm with a Cancer, so that he balances me out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird
biased.
because mostly Tauruses are confrontational, and I don't like to be like. Sometimes I want to be, but I don't like to be, so I just let it rage inside myself. Like I keep my Taurus bull.
You probably put it out in your writing. You're just like rah rah rah. Here's headstrong right there. Yeah.
But
well, I suppose it has been a blast. I feel like if it wasn't for the fact that I have to go right now, I could probably keep talking.
Or
I hate being on a deadline.
I know.
What?
The technical
it was so bad. It took us so long.
I know. That was
It was
so stinky.
So yeah, I'll take the blame. It was me. It was all my fault. I don't know why.
I'll blame it just on technology in general.
The technology jinx here.
No.
Well, it ended up well though. We've got an hour and 11 minutes of stuff to go through, so that's perfect. Yeah. And I hope we didn't talk over. We do. I feel like I talk a lot, and so. But I hope you had fun because I definitely had fun.
I had a lot of fun. It was great chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
Do it again sometime.
Nice to connect.
For sure. Well, and that's what, if you've ever got something coming up, or if the querying hits for you and you want to talk about it, hit us up because we would love to have you on again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun. Blast.
Yeah. I will link our accounts. I'm getting better. So for some reason, I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to go big into this, but I will link them so people know where to find us. But a lot of times they're not clickable. I don't know why. I'm still getting used to YouTube. But at least people will know where to find all our stuff and they can copy and paste it and put it in.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, stuff after this. So.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, that's it. I'm so excited we finally got to talk in, not really like in person, but in video person. Because I feel like I talk to you a lot just in general because we're in a comment group together too and stuff. So this was great. And so
wouldn't that be the last fly out to Ireland and just hang out. That would be
Yes.
I'm down.
amazing.
Yeah. Anytime you guys want to come over, like we will go do all the writery things. There's a lot of writery.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That would be
so
awesome.
fun.
It would. I mean, I can only imagine being in Ireland probably just gets your mind going, anyways. You know, like just such a fantastical world in itself.
Yeah, especially like
Mhm.
driving through the countryside, you just kind of like see random like derelict castle parts.
Ah,
and
yes,
the idea.
it's a
We
dream.
made the same face at the same time. We were both like,
Yeah, like it is. It's you are in a fantasy place right now. You're what we all try to write.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna cut it off. Thank you guys so much. This has been fun. The technical difficulties were awful, but we made it.